G'day battlers, and today we're going to be taking a look at my run through the Clash of the Casters tournament. Now, if you don't know what this tournament is, essentially I invited every caster from the 2024 season across Play Pokemon from North America, Europe, Latin America, and now the Oceanic region as well, and put them all in one tournament, Open Great League, Swiss rounds, and so we ended up with 24 casters from across the world, which means a 5-round Swiss tournament, just all, duking it out, and the winner at the very end picks up a $100 cash prize as well. So, I put myself into the ring as well because you're not going to turn down the chance to take on some of the greats and see how you do fare. And it was actually Fishy Legs that sort of commented in this group chat, if all of the casters are competing in this tournament, then who is actually going to cast this tournament? And in my head, only one light bulb went off, and it was the world champions. So if you didn't see it, I've uploaded the VOD of the week 1 stream that was just held last weekend, and we had EwokPadawan, Dancing Rob, and ME Weedle, all 3 Play Pokemon world champions coming on to cast that, which was really awesome. So you can go watch that video. It's on the channel now. It's a little bit over 3 hours, but essentially we go through the first 3 rounds of this tournament and try and get a variety of casters. So we show off a battle from almost everyone you see above me. There's only 2 that didn't make the cut because they didn't upload their battles and it just didn't mathematically work out. And then this weekend, there's going to be the week 2 stream, which will focus on the last 2 rounds of the tournament. So that's going to be at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. UTC, this Sunday, which is going to be like 3 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on the Monday morning. So for us Aussies, it'll be a little bit tougher to tune in, but if you're in the Europe or the Americas, a little bit easier. So do go head over to the Twitch channel. You can pre-follow it, I guess. The link will probably be in the description if I remember it. But yeah, essentially in this video we'll just be going through, and also next weekend it'll be casted by EwokPadawan again, and then Speediest Chief 2 and Junebug97 will join in as 2 of the Silpharina world champions. So yeah, really cool event. I just have a lot of fun with it. So in this video we'll be going through my 5 rounds for this tournament because I play some titans, to say the least. Now my first round was actually put on stream, and that was against TomahawkUK, who is a really strong battler from the UK, or I guess he is from the UK. I meant to say from Europe. They've got the same sort of starting sound, but he's placed second place in 2 regionals. Well, 1 regional and 1 special event this season. Really strong battler, qualified for Worlds, is going to be competing in August in Honolulu. It might already be August by the time I actually upload this. We'll find out. But anyway, really strong battler. But I'm actually going to pass it over to EwokPadawan and Dancing Rob to take you through this first battle, and then I'll sort of come back in and do the rest of my rounds. The progress bar is going to have everything down below. So like if you've already seen this first round, if you watch the stream, then you can just skip straight to my round 2 battle against Inadequance as well. But yeah, I've probably forgotten things, but we'll get to them as we go. So only important thing, check out the stream this weekend if you're around, and yeah, see you on the other side. Take it away, Axon and Rob.
Is the next matchup actually has a very special guest here. Someone who you guys might recognize. PvP Steve himself, I believe, is going to be fighting Tomahawk in this next matchup.
Let's go. That sounds exciting. We actually do have teams already, and it can't be an Australian without a Bastion on raid.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Well, we have the signature pick here from Steve. We saw that signature picks were very strong for Inadequance earlier today, and that Wailmer, I don't know how much play it's going to have. It actually looks all right here, all things considered. There's at least 1 target for it, so maybe we'll see it line up against a Typhlosion. But Steve was actually telling us that these are 2 of the competitors, like some of the only 2 that have ever brought Wailmer. Tomahawk has brought a Wailmer to a Play Pokemon tournament in the past. So hopefully Tomahawk knows how to play around it here this game.
I must admit I'm not the most familiar with Wailmer matchups, so maybe I underestimated a bit, but especially since Shadow Typhlosion has the new edition of Thunder Punch, that probably makes your Wailmer matchup a lot better than it was before.
That is completely fair. Wailmer does actually have access, if you guys don't know, Water Gun, Body Slam, and Scald is its moveset. So not exactly a great moveset in the sense that it's kind of slow to get into the moves, but like it's the same pacing as Lickitung to Body Slam and to Power Whip. So knowing that means you know your Wailmer counts now. And I don't expect to see too much Wailmer here, but the Bastion actually has quite a few targets. I think there's only one hard answer to that thing. Actually, what is the moveset on Oz? If it runs Hydro Pump, Oh, it actually is a Hydro Pump Azu, so never mind. There are two things that can decently answer this Basti, but it is still an awkward matchup here. If you line it up into the Typhlosion, into the Lickitung, the Charjabug, or the Cresselia here, Bastiodon might have a ton of play for Steve.
Definitely agree. On the other side, the Poliwrath from Tomahawk, which is the only Bastiodon counter, actually has a lot of troubles with the Annihilate, the Cresselia, and also the Gligar. So we might actually even see some Bastiodon action. I know a lot of players use it mostly as a bench pressure, but also someone has to have the guts to actually bring it, right, Axel?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've seen the wrong end of a Bastiodon before in a Play Pokemon tournament. It's going to be interesting to see if Steve has what it takes to align his Bastiodon perfectly against TomahawkUK.
If anyone can do it, then it's an Australian. But it seems like he's not actually bringing it in game one, besides to go for the Lickitung instead.
Extremely disappointed here. No Basti. Are you kidding me? It would have loved this Cresselia.
For sure. But also this Lickitung loves the Cresselia as well. This matchup is more neutralish than you think, though, despite Lickitung having access to Lake of Hitting in the lead. And especially since it's Future Sight Cresselia, two Future Sights nearly threaten the KO on the Lickitung side.
Exactly. I think that Cresselia actually can flip the one-shield matchup here. I think good Cresselias can potentially flip the 0 as well with Future Sight, but it needs to be a really specific Cresselia to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But now that we see that there's a Cresselia in the lead for Tomahawk, you have to imagine he's not going to be super weak to Basti in the back. This is a Pokemon that's already kind of weak to it. We have to assume there's a Poliwrath at least in the back there. We obviously don't have his point of view, but we can imagine it might be Poliwrath, and I could see Azu as well being in the back line here.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Oh, get the bait off with the grass knot there.
Interesting. We don't see Lickitungs getting shielded too often, but also Lickitung has some very neutral play into everything on Tomahawk's side, so I definitely see their play there.
Future Sight Cresselia, proving why it's so strong. Is this a Future Sight or is it a grass knot? It's a Future Sight.
It is.
Lickitung nearly winning or nearly losing the 1-0 shield. Holy cow! What?
That was very close. And now actually Lickitung itself from Tomahawk deciding to go for the Gligar, probably expecting any of the water types in the backs, and that's why you want to go into Gligar and not Cresselia here. If it's Turgidok in the back, of course, then you make the wrong card.
Yeah, he went APA to Basti here. So it has to be that Poliwrath, right? It literally has to be.
At least the bench pressure definitely didn't work, unless he definitely expected no Bastiodon to come.
One thing we have to keep in mind, Tomahawk himself has used a Shadow Bastiodon, I think got second place with it as well. He knows how Bastiodon players think. Maybe he knew Steve would not be bold enough to bring it into game number 1, and Steve here was not actually bold enough to bring it here, but he does have the answers for the things that would beat the Basti. If it is that Poliwrath in the back, we're in a great spot, but honestly, there's a lot of things that could be in the back right now that could be troublesome. That the potential Typhlosion actually would have a ton of play. The Charjabug as well could be very tricky depending on what the third Pokemon is going to be. Oh, we actually end up seeing that he lets his Gligar go.
We actually also saw the Power Whip from the Lickitungs. Steve probably knew that the Body Slam wasn't enough and wanted to get the move off. Tomahawk actually went for the Power Whip, which was a very smart play. So now Steve will probably overfirm and see whether he can beat whatever is in the back.
Looks like it is that Poliwrath, a nice catch, but it's going to be what you'd want to throw anyway, probably. You probably need 2 moves here. After they get a debuff, they'd probably shield anyway. But I think Tomahawk might actually be in a winning position here, despite being in a losing matchup in the moment.
Probably Moonblast would have been the better move, and you could have potentially Sucker it down afterwards, but now it definitely looks great for Tomahawk. And at this point, your lose con might be Steve no-shielding an Ice Beam, and Icy Wind, if there even is a loose gun, but actually it is an Icy Wind, so let's see.
Yeah, this game does get to continue on just a little bit longer here now that Icy Wind was the move that was thrown by Tomahawk. With that said, though, these counters are going to put them pretty low, or even he just lets that go because Lickitung is still around. I think at this point, Tomahawk is very confident in his Lickitung to just fast move down this Cresselia, maybe even get to 2 Body Slams here before they get to their 2 attacks. The first Body Slam does come through. I'd assume if Tomahawk is throwing 1, he probably has 2 right now, and this Lickitung likely can close out game number 1.
Steve made that very close and nearly got to 2 Grass Nuts, but Lickitung just too bulky and Cresselia just not bulky enough, I guess.
Yeah, a bit of an unfortunate lead for our PvP Steve here. He obviously did have his Lickitung into a Cresselia, but I don't think any of us realized just how bad the matchup was there. If you have Future Sight Cresselia, it was able to do so much damage, get a shield, and basically knock out the Lickitung. It took out not only a shield, but an entire Lickitung just on its own,
Yeah.
meaning that even though it wasn't necessarily the best backline for Tomahawk, he had enough of an advantage that his Poliwrath did not need to worry about being down shields. It got an Icy Wind into that Cresselia, and Steve unfortunately did end up losing game number 1. Tomahawk, very well played.
But also, Steve knows now how to play the Cresselia matchup with his Lickitung, especially against Tomahawk-specific IVs. So I'm curious to see how he's going to adapt in the second game, and whether he will finally bring either the Whalmer or the Bastion on, which is what we were hoping for.
Yeah, the 2 signature picks here were unfortunately absent game number 1. Bastion did look like it had a ton of play, though, so I think that Steve might see that. He might bring it, but it's just going to be kind of that 1 in 6 call. Do you think you're going to get that one good lead or that one bad lead with that Poliwrath, or do you think you're going to get a Cresselia, a Charjabug, Lickitung, Typhlosion? Even Azu is not the best, but you'd rather see that than the Poliwrath. It's kind of a gamble, but it's probably one of the best gambles a Bastion user is ever going to have here. Yeah. Only one hard answer to you. I think the Basti has to come.
I'm not very familiar with playing Bastion myself, but I feel like leading Bastion would be very tough right now, and might want to expect the Poliwrath lead on Tomahawk's side. We're going to see what is going to happen in game 2 now.
Okay, the Basti does come, but into a Lickitung lead with the Azumarill there, and it safe swaps the Lickitung and Bastion. It comes in, it starts doing what Bastion does best: smackdown, Stone Edge, absorb all of the licks, all of the power whips here. This is such a solid matchup for our steel type Pokemon here.
So if Steve is predicting the Poliwrath in the back now, he has some perfect alignment that he definitely wants to keep, which should be possible with Bastion, right? So let's see how this matchup plays out.
Yeah, at this point, even if Lickitung shields once, I think Basti still ends up keeping switch advantage. So Tomahawk would have to go down 2 shields if he wants any chance. But even just letting 1 move through, I think that's enough for Steve to just always keep switch advantage this game. And if it is that Poliwrath in the back, we do have Cresselia. Cresselia, though, it does have a few things it does need to be kind of concerned about if they are in the back line. You know, specifically that Typhlosion, that Charjabug. Once again, it could be a little bit awkward. And knowing that we see that this Bastion is here, it might be an ABB-style team against Basti. I could see that being the case, trying to bait out the Basti with the Lickitung and having another Basti weakness in the back, such as that Charjabug, which could be awkward for Steve to deal with.
Steve at least definitely not saving on the Bastion. Tomahawk trying to snipe the Bastion with the bubble, but Steve still getting off the move. And now the Azumarill is actually switched lock, and Steve actually going to Cresselia here, so not sure what he's expecting in the back. Probably not the Poliwrath at this point, since then he would have saved the...
I think I like this play by Steve. He's expecting it not to be Poliwrath because he had a Pokemon that's already strong against the Bastion in the lead. And would you really run this hard ABB weak to a Cresselia if you did have that Poliwrath in the back? I'd be surprised. I think that he's making the read. It's either a Typhlosion or potentially a Charjabug as the 3rd Pokemon on this team. He's also shielding this to be safe, just in case he's wrong, just in case it is that Poliwrath.
It is definitely a pretty interesting play to... Let's see what is in that back, because I'm kind of hesitant to evaluate the play yet. What is happening? I know it is actually the Cresselia itself. So you were actually right.
Yeah, I think he's in a good spot here. He unfortunately does get caught on here. He could have got the Psycho Cut down, unfortunately. But, I mean, we still have that full health Lickitung. And Cresselia, since this does not have Moonblast on the opposing side, they have to Grass Knot us to knock out our Cress. We can get a ton of fast move pressure here. I think that now Steve is in a fantastic position. Great read by him, expecting a Pokemon in the back that his Lickitung would be even better into.
The Cresselia will definitely have a hard time by taking out both the Lickitung and the opposing Cresselia. We actually have the Cresselia expert in the chat, being Lurgan Rocket. He could tell us everything about all Cresselia AVs, and in which Cresselia AVs the straight grass knot is even better in the mirror, but I think at this point it might just be a little bit too much for Tomahawk.
Yeah, I almost would have liked to see a shield immediately on the first move that this Cresselia threw, because just as I was about to say, they could bait you now with the Grass Knot, and that first one is very likely not a bait, but now, even though you did shield that bait move, we got a lot of lick damage here. This Body Slam will do a lot. We're still outside of range where Future Sight will knock us out for now, and our own Cresselia in the back should be able to just get to the Grass Knots that it needs to. If we get this next Body Slam off, that would be critical, make it so our Cresselia has a little bit less work to do, but honestly, I think that our Cresselia in the back is still going to be good enough to win this game.
Unfortunately, the switch timer wasn't up. Otherwise, I would have loved to see a Future Sight catch on the Cresselia. But even like that, it should just be enough to Psycho cut down the Cresselia. And I think Tomahawk knows. And yeah, he didn't even shield in the end, which makes sense. So well
Two
played
shields
by
for
Steve.
the next match here. And now we have a decisive game 3. Are we going to see this Whalmer? That is what the fans want to see, Steve. Come on, you got to bring it. I know it didn't have any play in that last game, but come on, the fans. Think of the fans now.
This game 3, bring Whalmer might be the actual play, or what might be what gonna ruin it for you from the very start. I'm very curious, and it seems like he's actually not bringing it. But the Bastion again.
It might be a ran back team here by Tomahawk. I think that we did see a different lead from Steve. He just swapped his order of Lickitung and Cresselia. But this is still just about as bad of a spot for Tomahawk to be in as it could be. He's going to have this Basti that can get a lot of damage onto this, keep switch advantage, get energy lead into the backline. And I think that Steve should be in a solid position depending on what the third Pokemon on Tomahawk's side is going to be. Steve
might be interested in adapting his strategy and potentially even saving the Bastiodons, and it feels pretty obvious that the Bastion is gonna get baited out, and maybe expecting a Charger back in the back or something like that.
Yeah, so I think at this point, a Charge Bug or a Typhlosion could be like the only thing that could bail Tomahawk out of this. So keeping the Basti alive could be a good play, especially because you don't really need switch advantage against an Azu with both your Cresselia and your Lickitung.
This also seems like an attack-weighted Bastiodon, since 3 Power Whips actually pretty much threaten the KO on the Bastiodon. But it seems like PvP Steve still doesn't want to shield.
Guess Steve might want to get some more XLs for his Basti in Adventure Week coming up here. Get a super XL Basti. But we do see the Stone Edge. Once again, this is playing out very similarly to game number 1. Stone Edge will not knock out Sazu, but this bubble will knock out our Basti. This chip damage is very nice. And it is going to come down to that back line. And there is the Shadow Typhlosion.
I actually would have loved to see the Bastiodon save after the Smackdown, because then you would have gotten to another Stone Edge. So now the Lickitung is probably in a... Well, I'm not too familiar with that matchup, and these licks chunk a lot.
But if you've ever seen the Charizard, Shadow Charizard into Lickitung matchup, it's going to play out very similarly. We call a bait as well. That is such a wild bait call, in my opinion. You can just double shield this and never take a blast burn. But calling this as well just instantly make Tomahawk lose the game, in my opinion, off of that nice bait call by Steve.
I definitely have to agree. If the big fire move got no shield, then that would have probably been GG, since the Cresselia has no play against the Typhlosion. But like this, Steve is in an excellent spot.
Yeah, we do get to this next Body Slam here, and because Typhlosion is so squishy, even if somehow our Lickitung does go down, this is in Cycle Cut range for our Cresselia, and there is still that Azumarill in the back. Azu has nowhere to go here. Once again, he was kind of ABA weak to that Lickitung, but we have our Cresselia that can just easily knock this out. After that Stone Edge as well, it puts it into a very comfortable double Grass Knot range for Cresselia, and I think that at this point, Steve should have this one locked in.
I totally agree. So great adaptation by Tomahawk, but also very smart play by Steve, actually recognizing what might be in the back and adapting and making a great call on the Lickitung.
And adjusting to Bastiodon, right? We didn't see the Basti game 1. I'm really surprised we didn't, but him realizing just how strong Basti would be, and also knowing that there's a good chance that it's going to be an ABB team to Basti. So you want to have it in the back. Don't lead it into a bad matchup. Just keep it in the back. Keep it safe, and it is very likely you will avoid one of the worst matchups you could have with that Bastiodon user.
The strat was probably to scare away the Poliwrath in game 1, and then his Bastion was way safer in the end. and it always got a good matchup. And by that, Steve actually takes the 2-1 over Tomahawk as well, and those Australian casters actually crushing it.
Yeah, fantastic reverse sweep by Steve. Honestly, no Whalmer action does disappoint me a little bit, but I don't think it had much play here. Steve, instead of playing for the fans, he played for the win, which is probably the better thing to do here in a tournament like this. But the Bastiodon still gave the fans what they wanted. We were able to see at RPS some Lickitungs do a lot of work as well as this tournament, and I hope that Steve is going to be getting on into day number 2 and having more Bastiodon, more Whalmer action here. We'll just have to see who ends up making it out of this initial stage of the tournament.
It would have even been the perfect opportunity for the Whalmer to come into the Typhlosion in the end, but this just means that Steve has to win in the next to bring us some Whalmer action next week, as you mentioned.
Exactly, yeah. I guess we can pass it off over to Steve here himself and see what the next battle has in store. Maybe he'll tell us if he's going to be able to bring a Whalmer into any future battles for us.
Yeah, so apologies for disappointing you, Axon, and all the fans for not running Whalmer, although I do promise that there will be some Whalmer battles coming up in the rest of this video, including against this opponent right here. So stay tuned, I promise, we'll get back to it. But yeah, I really enjoyed listening to the World Champion casting for sure, but let's get into round number 2. I'm up 1-0, and we're facing Inadequance. One of the strongest battlers in this tournament has also taken out a first place victory. So I'm gone from, you know, someone who's got 2 second places to someone who won the Utrecht special event at the very start of last season. Well, it was that weird middle ground where it's sort of using the meta, sort of not using the meta. But anyway, he has brought some picks from that tournament win. He's running the Giratina Origin, the Wigglytuff, Talonflame, Cresselia, Vigoroth, and Azumarill. And I guess, like, you know, you've seen my team, obviously, but I didn't really talk about it, so let's talk about it now. I have the Whalmer, of course, you know, the mascot, the top 6 Sydney Regional Championship Whalmer, and then we also have Bastiodon as the Australian, Pokemon of choice, Gligar, Cresselia, Annihilape, and Lickitung. Now, as you might have seen, did I run it? My Annihilape actually has Ice Punch. It is not running Night Slash, which can be good in certain circumstances, not that good against Inadequance's team, unfortunately, and so I'm sort of looking at Inadequance's team with this squad. And I should mention as well, the Talonflame is Fly Flame Charge. Wigglytuff is actually running Swift as a charge attack, which is not one that I'd actually had to face before now, so I'm sort of have to learn it on the fly. And then that Azumarill is Play Rough Hydro Pump. So the first thing I noticed looking at his team is that Bastiodon is incredibly strong. So it's good against Giratina, Wigglytuff, super good against Talonflame, good against Cresselia, and it really is only answered by that Vigoroth and the Azumarill, and you at least have some play. You're not completely walled, even though they're not great matchups. So Bastiodon was going to be coming every single game against Inadequance, and so then it was about playing defense. So, Vigoroth and Azumarill, sorry. Cresselia seems like a pretty solid bring to try and counter them both. And I think in this first game, I actually bring in Gligar, which is a bit of an interesting choice, but I think that I didn't want to go for Annihilape. I was a little bit scared about bringing Annihilape, especially because that Giratina was just lurking around. I knew Wigglytuff was going to give it a really hard time as well, and it just didn't pace very quickly, especially without Night Slash. So I think I left it on the bench, at least with the first game. I do speed these battles up as well, but game number 1, we have Cresselia into Vigoroth, so a pretty decent lead, and especially because it means that our Bastiodon is going to be avoiding this Vigoroth for now. We kind of want to win the matchup, because again, we don't really want to leave Vigoroth hanging around, but it looks like Inadequance is pretty happy to just let this Vigoroth stick around and take the Grass Knot, so it brings him down to about half health after all of these Psycho Cuts. We're up to the Moonblast now, and I think I went for the tap, but he's gone for the Body Slam here. I did tap on the... Oh no, it was another Grass Knot. So Grass Knot goes through. It's not going to KO, but he actually burns the Protect Shield. So at this point, I'm kind of like, all right, we're going to win a shield regardless. We burn our shield. Again, we sort of want to win this matchup, so we sort of hope that this Moonblast is going to go through, and then we'll beat out the Vigoroth, and then see what comes in, keep our Bastiodon healthy in the back. And Inadequance actually swaps in the Talonflame. Now, I didn't want them to get a huge amount of farm on my Cresselia, because I had quite a bit of health left. I mean, not like heaps, but enough that Talonflame was going to get a lot of Incinerates. But I also didn't want to swap straight into my Bastiodon hard counter. So I actually swap into Gligar. Essentially a bit of a sack here. And so, really bad timing on my part. I actually let him get a full Incinerate, so that was a bit of an oopsie on my part. But I do just get that last Aerial Ace off, get that last shield off of Inadequance. He does not expect that it's going to be the Bastiodon in the back, so here it comes. He uses the Flame Charge regardless, and then is probably just going to swap straight out into the Azumarill. So again, we've kept our Cresselia with a little bit of health, so we can actually get to this Grass Knot. We really don't want to bring our Bastiodon into this, so I think our play is to essentially burn a shield on the charge attack that Azumarill might throw. It's not going to throw. Clearly, he's going for the full farm down, so I go for this Grass Knot, and then Cresselia is going to go down, and it's going to be up to Basti, and this is where I do the second oopsie of the game, and a much more consequential oopsie, in that I'm in a pretty good spot here. I can actually win. I can actually farm all the way down and then throw the charge attack into Talonflame, but instead I throw straight away on Azumarill as if like this Hydro Pump is going to KO. It's actually not going to KO, even though I do actually have an attack weighted Bastiodon, like it's level 41 or something. So I thought that it might I thought the Hydro Pump could potentially be enough depending on the Azumarill IVs, but it just wasn't going to KO. So I should have just taken the Hydro Pump on the chin, farmed all the way down, and then thrown the Stone Edge into the Talonflame, and then we actually would have been GG's. So you know, we sort of threw game one a little bit, but we go into game number two. We have the Cresselia into such a bad lead with Giratina, and so there's not a lot we can do here because we're a little bit ABA weak to Giratina a little bit. To be honest, we were a little bit in the last game as well, but yeah, we really don't have much to do here. We just have to throw Moonblast, and we know that we're either going to get a shield out of Inadequance or we're going to do quite a bit of damage there. So we're just going to go for another one. We sort of force him to burn his energy. There's not a lot we can do here, to be honest. So we just let Cresselia go. He just goes for the Ominous Wind, and at this point we bring in the Basti. We're kind of hoping, like, what's our win con here? So we're looking like, okay, maybe he brings Talonflame again, and then we're running Bastiodon with the fan favorite, the fan pick. He's finally faltered to the fan service, bringing in the Wailmer. So I've got quite a, I've got two answers for Talonflame at the very least, and then maybe whatever the other pick is, like maybe it's like Wigglytuff, and Bastiodon can do enough alongside Wailmer with the Scalds. Wigglytuff, he's not going to bring Wigglytuff. It is that Vigoroth, and now he's swapping to the Wailmer, and it's Cresselia in the back. So he's completely left Talonflame behind. I brought ABB Strong into Talonflame, and Talonflame didn't even bother to show up, which maybe I should have expected that because that Bastiodon was going to scare it away, but, it is what it is. We get the debuff from the Scald. So we're kind of like, oh, well, Body Slam's not going to quite be enough, but I don't think that I'm actually going to get up to a Scald. I think that Cresselia is going to outpace us to another one. Oh, no, we do get to the Scald, and then we throw Body Slam. I actually don't know what the logic here is. Yeah, I could have just thrown Scald and KO'd the Cresselia there, but it doesn't matter too much because then this Vigoroth is going to come in. It would have farmed down our Wailmer and then is just going to take down this Bastiodon. So it didn't really, inconsequential. But yeah, that was just not the team comp that we wanted. But we go game 3, Wailmer lead, and we get the Talonflame in the lead. So really nice spot for Wailmer to be in. Bastiodon would be even better. So we're sort of like, this doesn't have to be our final spot. He doesn't have Brave Bird, so we know that we can sort of take whatever move this is. Fly does do quite a bit of damage, and we end up just throwing the Scald, knowing that it'll KO. Lets the Talonflame go, and in comes the Giratina. So again, we can I think I was hoping that I could potentially get a Scald to try and get a debuff through, but it wasn't going to happen. So I end up just throwing a Body Slam to do a little bit of damage, and now we bring in the Basti. We know that Talonflame is already out for the count, and I'm sort of predicting that it's either going to be Vigoroth or Azumarill in the back. It is the Vigoroth, so we can swap into our Annihilate here, and we're in a really good position. Annihilate should just be able to counter like all the way through. We actually just eat a Rock Slide, which is fine. Like really, Vigoroth has no charge attacks, and I make another oopsie here. I throw the Ice Punch. This was unnecessary. I could have farmed all the way down because now Inadequance has a Giratina coming in here with 2 shields. Ice Punch takes a little bit of time to get to and isn't even a one-hit KO. I think in my head and I don't even get to another Ice Punch, which is a spot where Night Slash would have been superior to Ice Punch. We would have at least gotten 2 charge attacks there, maybe got a shield off of the Giratina, and then we didn't actually shield that either. I think I was trying to make some big brain call that it was going to be an ominous wind, but now we're just going to get, farmed all the way down. Like, we're trying our best to fast stack down, but it just wasn't going to happen. So, I definitely didn't do that well in that set, to be honest. Definitely a few mistakes to clean up on, but, at the end of the day, it's all for funsies. And Inadequance just guillotined me away. But that's what I get for running Adelli0n, and there you go, the fans. Wyoming at least got to see the battlefield a little bit. And now we're going to be going into round 3 against Adelli0n. Now, Adelli0n has competed in a couple of regional tournaments. I don't think he's made any top cuts, but also someone who's really pushing the grassroots scene with the Devon scene that just had its World Championships last weekend as well. So, taking a look at the team here, again, Adelli0n looks pretty strong. Like, it's pretty good into Cresselia, Skeledirge, Skarmory. It's decent into Goodra. It's all right. And then we're just fearing that Vigoroth Shadow Quagsire combo that he's running. And so I'm sort of thinking along similar lines in that Cresselia could be pretty strong here. Although I'm a little scared of to use Cresselia because Skarmory's quite strong. Skeledirge is quite strong. So I think against Adelli0n, I actually lean into the Annihilape Lickitung a little bit more. Annihilape sort of giving... it's got some play into pretty much Adelion's entire team. Again, like, should I have brought Ice Punch? Should I have brought Night Slash? I'm not sure, but Ice Punch at least gives us some super effective damage into the Goodra. I think Ice Punch is sort of outdated, to be honest. I was really slow to accept Night Slash was the move of choice because I was kind of like, there's still so many Glygars running around. Like, it still has a lot of potential, but Gligar is not used as much as it used to be, and so I think that sort of hampered me a little bit. Well, actually, there was quite a few Glygars in this tournament. I just didn't seem to run into them very often. So, yeah, essentially... we're looking for at another Adelli0n set, apparently becoming the MVP of the tournament here, but let's try and get a second win on the board here, Annihilape into Shadow Quagsire. Again, we have Adelli0n in the back, so we're not really looking to swap here. Now, I actually I'm not sure how I thought this, but going into this particular set with Adelli0n, for some reason I thought Aquatail took 5 mud shots. It takes 4. It's really spammy, and I think I would sort of make that mistake 2 or 3 times across this set, and I'm not really sure how it settled in my head, but yeah, it is 4, so we end up getting into this Lickitung versus Goodra matchup now. We're just going to be throwing straight body slams, because Power Whip is obviously resisted, and at this point, I'm kind of like, well, we should be able to tank this move from the Goodra. We'll throw a body slam. That will KO if it goes through, but otherwise it'll just be a fast move off, and we'll see. Oh, we actually undercharge, but not enough. I really tried there. I think I was more hoping that to weaken down my Lickitung rather than like giving myself a potential to get energy so that this Skarmory wouldn't get more farm, but failed on that front. So Skarmory now gets quite a bit of farm, but luckily we have Adelli0n in the back ready for this exact matchup. So it doesn't matter how much energy this Skarmory has, Adelli0n is ready to take the case. Now, comes into the Quagsire and throws the energy. At this point, I'm actually happy to see this because that just means that my Annihilape can come in a little bit safer. I can use my Protect Shields here. The Mud Shots are really starting to add up, which is a bit scary. I'm glad that he's switch locked so that I can at least try and get this off. And I ended up throwing the Ice Punch, and he lets it go, which I thought was an interesting play, because now, I'm going to throw this Ice Punch, and then get the shield, and then Adelli0n comes in, and at this point, I just get to a Flamethrower and KO, and this will be GG's. So, he ends up throwing the Sky Attack, which I just call. It could have been a Brave Bird, and we still, would have been okay. So, we take the first game against Adelli0n. Adelli0n landing on that Skarmory in the back, really coming in clutch. And so game number 2, we go for a similar strat, bringing the Adelli0n into the lead this time. Now, Cresselia is pretty good. We've actually brought the Wailmer back in as well. You're welcome, the fans. But we sort of have to think about what happens in the back line. So if the Skarmory is hanging around, it's obviously a pretty bad time if we end up with our Annihilape there. And so we sort of want our Adelli0n or Wailmer to sort of end up in that position. And yeah, we're in a really dominant spot here. It's interesting that he's not swapping out. It sort of confirms that he's not running ABB, because if he was running Vigoroth Quagsire, then he'd be swapping into one of those. And so that's some sort of information. So once we see one of them, I'm going to assume that we're not going to see the other. This Cresselia is doing quite a bit of damage. Again, this is a really attack-weighted Adelli0n. Don't let that Best Buddy ribbon fool you. And you see the Quagsire come out, we swap into the Wailmer. And there's the swap into Goodra. So he's got a fair bit of energy on that Quagsire, which is going to be a little bit scary. I probably should have thrown a charge attack onto the Quagsire, I think. But at the very least, we're really unleashing a lot of pressure onto this Goodra. The second Body Slam going through and just letting it go. He does have Thunder Punch, which is, it's obviously super effective, but Whalmer can barely tank it. But a few more Dragon Breaths and we go down. So at this point, we know it's Quagsire, so we may as well bring in the Bastiodon here, just to sort of try and soak up any energy that the Goodra might have thrown. In comes the Quagsire. Again, it has energy, and so now we're kind of just going, fingers crossed, can we muscle through this Quagsire before it throws a gazillion million charge attacks? The answer to that is going to be no, because it is going to throw a gazillion jillion fast charge attacks. But look how much damage that Aqua Tail did. Like, that's kind of gross. Annihilate, definitely not the tankiest of mons, and the Shadow bonus on that Quagsire doing well. Now, this is another little odd choice on my part in that I throw the Ice Punch. Now, I was clearly trying to go for like, I think I was like, oh, maybe I can get to a charge attack on the Bastiodon in the back. I was never going to get to a charge attack on the Bastiodon in the back, and I think that might have been my having the Aqua Tail count wrong as well, because you can see how low that Quagsire got. So if I threw a counter instead of tapping on that charge attack, I actually would have won that game, and we would have had a 2-0 victory there. So a little bit of an oops on my part. And this is sort of something of a mindset shift for me, in that I actually got a little salty. I was like, oh man, I really should have won that one after this game. I think because I actually sort of am starting to try and get good. But terrible lead for game number 3. We have the Bastiodon into the Quagsire, so we swap into the Whalmer. And Adelli0n goes for that same play of farming up a bit of energy on the Quagsire, which is going to be so deadly later. And then it brings in the Goodra. So Goodra is just going to soak up all of this energy. Throws the Thunder Punch, and we actually end up shielding here. I think that I sort of hoped that I could Body Slam, KO the Goodra, and then try and win switch advantage so that I don't have to see my Bastiodon onto that Quagsire again. Would be the most ideal. We actually get to a third Body Slam here. Like, Whalmer, as much as it's not like a fast Pokemon, it's not actually that, like, it's not too bad. We end up calling an not calling, we just end up taking an Aqua Tail there. And now we have to worry about that Quagsire on the back. So I'm sort of thinking here, like, what do we do? And I just go like, well, I think we just have to hope that Adelli0n is going to be too scared to bring that Skarmory, and that Cresselia is going to be able to take it all down. So we insta-swap into the Cresselia. As soon as we get a Grass Knot onto this Quagsire, it's going to be good night. So we just have to hope that whatever Pokemon is in the back is pretty decent. So maybe it's something like a Goodra. It's actually going to be the Vigoroth. So it tries to catch a Grass Knot, but we're sort of calm and collected. So we throw the Moonblast, get the attack debuff as well, which is absolutely massive. All of a sudden, we've actually got a pretty nice win con here. Body Slam comes through. Again, attack debuff is massive. End up throwing the Grass Knot just to weaken down this Vigoroth a little bit more. And at this point, I know what's coming. I know that he is about to swap into that Quagsire. And so I responded to this in a really odd way, in that I try and just swap. I tried to catch a move there, but then I know that it's coming and I swap into Bastiodon. This was a major mistake, and I knew it instantly. I knew that Cresselia was going to lose charge attack priority. What I needed to do, and what I knew that I should have done even at the time, was tap on the Grass Knot, knowing that he was going to swap into my charge attack. The Grass Knot would go through, hit the Quagsire, and then there would just be that sliver of health on the Vigoroth to take out. So this is another one that I unfortunately threw. And again, I was a little bit salty, which is it's just new for me. I usually, like, I'm a very gracious loser in most settings, but this time I was like, oh man, I should have won that. But, it is what it is. We're learning lessons as we go. And so we're now 1-2 in this tournament. So going up against EwokPadawan, one of the casters from the Latin American region. I think he casted one of the Mexico City tournaments over yonder. And so he's running a team with Altaria, Shadow Quagsire, Skarmory, Double Flyer, also the Charjabug, Annihilate, and Skeledirge. And I probably should have had the teams written down, because it was open team sheet. Again, it was like play Pokemon vibes. But I'm pretty sure that's a Knight/Annihilate. And then all of the other moves are standard. I think with an Aqua Tail, Stone Edge, Quagsire as well. And similarly to the last couple of rounds, I look at this and I see Bastiodon strong. And so Bastiodon really good against Altaria, against Charjabug, against Skeledirge, against Skarmory. We're just worried about the Mudboy Fighter combo. So How do you think we're going to play it? We're going to bring Bastion every single game, and we're going to try and defend it. Again, a little bit scared of the Cresselia, especially when there's X's, super effective X's, super effective Shadow Ball, Skarmory doing really well against it as well. Altaria is pretty decent, but even Annihilate, sort of having that threat of super effective damage, not really the best bodyguard. So I think, again, I sort of lean into the Annihilate Lickitung. I think I'm a little bit scared of using Whelmer as well because of that Charge Bug. If Charger Bug wasn't there, Whelmer would be a pretty solid bring as well. So we try and, we end up winning the lead here. Hard win with a Bastion into Skarmory. They swap into Annihilate, and I make another weird decision here, in that I swap into my Annihilate. Now, you can probably see the problem here, and there's a few of them. Number one is that they have Night Slash, I have Ice Punch. They're faster than me to get to those charge attacks. I also swapped in with an energy disadvantage, meaning that they're going to get to them even faster. So I shield up 2 Shadow Balls here. I managed to at least get a shield bait off with the Ice Punch, knowing that I needed to do something to get the advantage here. Now I throw the Hail Mary Shadow Ball, hoping it goes through, but it doesn't go through. And so instead, I charge up to an Ice Punch, I swap out into the Lickitung, hoping that I could maybe try and catch a Shadow Ball somewhere. But ends up just eating a Night Slash, and then they swap out into the Skarmory. So obviously this isn't a great matchup for me, but at the very least I will be able to bring the Bastion back into this matchup. And then I kind of just have to hope that Annihilate can sort of clean up in the back. That's really all I've got going for me. I do have, there's no shields in play either, so I just really need to get some energy on my Annihilate as well. So here comes the Sky Attack again, that is slowly whittling me down. Bastion comes in, and again, it's going to be able to soak anything that this Skarmory throws. I'm hoping that there's no Quagsire in the back. That's sort of my worst nightmare in some sense, especially now that, yeah, well, there's the Quagsire, and Annihilate swaps in. It has a charge attack ready to go. Throws the Night Slash, not quite enough to KO, but now I'm kind of like, I don't see the path to victory here. I throw the Ice Punch as a bit of a Hail Mary, knowing that I could potentially survive and maybe, have something in the tank to get to another charge attack, but not going to happen. Bastion is eventually going to fall here, and so EwokPadawan going to take out game number 1. Even though we had such a strong lead, we just didn't really have anything to counter the Annihilate swap. So maybe I end up bringing Gligar. I do bring Gligar into this matchup. We get the really good lead again. So at this point, I'm like, all right, if that Annihilate swap happens again, at the very least, we're going to have the Gligar swap. And at this point, I do end up throwing the charge attack. They're just farming up an absolute ton here. And they charge up the energy and then swap into Quagsire. And I'm like, happy days. We have Cresselia this time. I think I went for the hard read. I swapping in Gligar. I was like, well, I'm still going to need something to deal with that Quagsire. And I don't think that the neutral Annihilate Lickitung is going to be enough. So we end up bringing the Cress in here to just try and push this thing to its limits. No need to shield. We can take that Aqua Tail easy. And the onus is really on EwokPadawan to shield up here. But they let it go. Again, if they bring in Skarmory, they already have a ton of energy, so they're sort of wasting an ability for farm in some sense. But we're happy to let Cresselia go. And then we're really just going to hope. And it's an Annihilate in the back, so I'm like, yeah! Bringing out Gligar, and we've pretty much just RPS this one to success. Which, sometimes when you're running Bastion, it happens. So we get that last Protect Shield, and now we're just going to essentially burn every shield in this Gligar. They are switch locked at this point. So, here's the Aerial Ace. It's going to land. There's no more shields on EwokPadawan's side. And then we just hard swap into the Bastion to finish off the Skarmory. And this is an easy GG's. So, we're 1-1 going into game number 3. Again, we're both 1-2 in this tournament. We only have 1 match win. And so, we're fighting this one out to try and get to that 2-2 score. Gligar into Skarmory is not what we wanted to see. I was apparently hard predicting that Annihilate lead to come out after I ran Bastion twice in a row. But we have the Bastion Cresselia in the back. And so, again, we're actually ABA weak to this Skarmory. And I ended up making this weird swap where I catch the move, which is, lovely. But it just means that this Annihilate is going to come out, and then I'm still going to have to deal with that Skarmory later. So this wasn't the greatest of strategies, I will suggest. We throw the Flamethrower. We know that Annihilate is going to hang on. We bring in our Gligar. But we have to be pretty spooked from any charge attack coming in from the Annihilate. And we just ended up letting it go, hoping that it was a knight/bait going. Again, we needed any advantage possible. So I sort of just went, well, maybe this is it. Maybe there's a win con here if we call the bait. And now we just have a Cresselia locked into Skarmory. If I could fast forward this battle even faster, I mean, maybe there is a way to do that. I don't know. But, I mean, I could even just skip ahead, to be honest. It is that lost. There is just nothing to be done here. So I think I'm just going to start talking about the next battle, to be honest. EwokPadawan takes the win here, and I'm now 1-3 in this tournament, you know. There was a chance I could have won against Inadequance. There was a chance I threw against Adelli0n, and then now against EwokPadawan. I've just been, you know, the teams have not been in my favor, especially in this last one. We at least get to take out that Quagsire, which is nice. But yeah, Skarmory comes back in, takes out my Gligar, and it is very soon going to take out my Skarmory, and EwokPadawan secures those 2 Protect Shields for their next matchup in round 5. So, round number 5, I'm up against the one and only 2OButters. Some people said that Butters were their favorite to win this whole tournament. I think we are both sitting at 1-3. So, you know, we haven't done too great so far, but there've been some hard opponents along the way. And 2OButters is running the Goodra, Shadow Quagsire, Registeel, Cresselia, Shadow Poliwrath, and Shadow Sableye. And this is different. Like, you know, a lot of these archetypes have been Bastiodon really strong into this team, and so we just have to focus on that fighter Mudboy sort of core that can break my Bastiodon, but 2OButters a little bit scarier into Bastiodon, where we have the Mudboy, we have the fighter, but we also have Registeel that is going to hurt us quite a bit. And then Goodra with the sort of neutral play, Cresselia running around, and the Shadow Sableye. Now, I should get the movesets back up because that is probably going to be pretty important for that Poliwrath. Okay, so Poliwrath is running Scald Icy Wind with counter, Quagsire, Stern Edge, Aqua Tail. Shadow Sableye is running Power Gem Foul Play, as Shadow Sableye tends to do, and everything else is pretty standard with Thunder Punch, Aqua Tail on the Goodra. And so going to this matchup, it's a little bit different. I'm not really sure what to expect. I was actually, I remember this now, I was walking to work while I started this battle, and so my Cresselia, like, I sort of went off vibe, and I was like, well, he's got 2 water types, Cresselia looks pretty good, we can get Grass Knots off one of those guys. We've also got Moonblast for the Goodra and the Shadow Sableye, then Cresselia Mirror Match, so Cresselia looks pretty good. What do we do about Registeel? Not Cresselia. And so I probably decide to bring Annihilate, because Annihilate also looks pretty decent on the whole, like, looks okay. And then I'm not sure where I go from there. It could be the Wailmer, it could be the Lickitung. I don't think I bring in the Gligar, but let's just jump into the battles and take a look at what I did. So, Cresselia Mirror Match to start off, and we actually have Annihilate Lickitung in the back. So, at this point, we just throw the Moonblast straight away. I'm aware of that 1 in 10 chance to get the debuff. We've got it once in this tournament. Maybe we can get it again and start this match off with a real highlight, but unfortunately not the case. Butters goes for it back, and no debuffs going off yet. So, I think I just throw the Grass Knot here. I'm not sure why exactly I did this. I think it was just a decision that I'm not sure if I was planning on, like, swapping out to Lickitung to try and catch something, or if it was just going to try and go for that, like, that one extra little bit of damage is going to help. But we ended up going for another Grass Knot here. And at this point, we're not going to be, like, a Moonblast would suck. So we end up shielding. And then we would have outpaced to another Grass Knot. Because they've brought in Goodra, we actually get to the Moonblast here and can at least get that shield out of Butters. But now, you know, that Goodra has a bit of energy. We swap into our Lickitung, the ultimate energy sponge, because Goodra is just going to unleash all of his energy here. Like, he's switch locked, so he's not going to be leaving this matchup anytime soon. So he may as well sort of keep throwing charge attacks, wind that switch timer down a little bit. But you can see how low it's getting. And it's not like our Lickitung isn't getting low either. It will be able to take this move at the very least. And then, yeah, this Body Slam would KO. He could kind of, it depends what he's got in the back. He decides that he wants to protect that Goodra. And he tries to go for a full farm down there, but ends up swapping into the Registeel last minute, which lets us swap into the Annihilate. Now, I was a little bit slow on that swap. I think I was trying to charge up to a Power Whip, potentially, to save up. He gets the Zap Cannon debuff, and I end up needing to throw a Shadow Ball to KO this Registeel. I could have been a little bit more greedy than that. But Shadow Ball doesn't KO anyway, so we get 1 extra counter all the same. Cresselia is back there with some energy in the tank, and so we sort of a little bit of stutter lag. So we end up throwing the Ice Punch. This will KO the Cresselia, and then it's just going to be that Registeel coming back. The Goodra coming back in. So we actually take game 1 against Butters, which I was pretty happy with, because Butters, definitely one of the best battlers out there. He's been number 1 on the Go Battle League leaderboard a ton. And we end up getting a pretty good lead there with Annihilate into the Poliwrath. So he swaps into Goodra. We swap into our Bastiodon because we don't really have a better answer. We've actually ditched Cresselia in this one in favor of Basti, which is a bit of an interesting play. I think maybe I was just making a hard read on Cresselia, but not how it's playing out at the very least. So we get the huge Stone Edge into the Goodra and we take that down. So we win switch at the cost of a shield. Poliwrath gets to farm up quite a bit of energy on us. And it's not like we have a hard counter that can soak all of this energy. Plus we're at a shield disadvantage. And so Annihilate is actually not looking that great here. To be honest, I think that's probably one of the weaknesses of this team that I've built, is that we don't really have a great check for fighters in general. Like, we sort of hope that Cresselia can maybe do the job. Maybe, like, Gligar can do the job sometimes. But, yeah, it depends on the fighter for sure. Shield up the Power Whip, which is unfortunate for us. And now this Sableye is just going to be able to unleash some energy. And this game is lost. Butters has sort of tied this thing up 1-1, which means we only have 1 battle left in the Clash of the Casters, trying to claim a second match win, which, we can try, right? We can do our best. But go for the Shadow Ball. And again, just a Hail Mary. Like, well, maybe we have a win con if Butters, for some reason, no shields this Shadow Ball, but no reason to. We weren't going to get to an Ice Punch as well. And so KOs it. And game number 3, we have Cresselia into Registeel. And I'm going to warn you guys, this game gets a bit crazy. So we swap into Annihilate, swaps into Cresselia. And I'm sitting there like, dang. Like, this is GG's. Like, there's not much of a chance. We even shield up the Grass Knot. And I was like, oh, man, that's not a good start at all. We go for the Hail Mary Shadow Ball, doesn't land, and we're like, okay, well, I guess we try and shield, we hope it's a Grass Knot. It's a Moonblast, Annihilate goes down. I'm like, okay, this game could not be more lost. Like, we have our Lickitung here, which is still a good matchup into Cresselia, but we know that our Cresselia is sitting out in the back, and this Lickitung Cresselia has to deal with Registeel. He swaps in the Registeel, knowing that he's just going to be able to go for that Focus Blast, and we're just doing resisted Body Slams. And so at this point, Butters and I sort of both check out of this battle. We're both like, we're done here. Don't need to worry about it too much. I think that was a Zap Cannon. I didn't quite. I was looking the wrong way. I think it was a debuff though. And then we're just tapping away. Like, I know this battle is going to end up with him taking me out, but then this Registeel is really low all of a sudden. So I'm like, wait, do we have a chance here? So I swap into Cresselia. I take a Zap Cannon. No debuff from the Zap Cannon. Cresselia swaps back in. We have the health advantage after all of those Lickitung licks. And I'm clicking back in. I'm like, hang on a minute. If there's like a Quagsire in the back and we can get a Grass Knot off, this could be absolutely huge. So we take the Moonblast. We get the attack debuff. The 1 in 10 comes our way, which is not what we wanted at all. So now we're like, okay, hopefully this Grass Knot still does enough. Actually brings up the Protect Shield. Our Cresselia is going to go down now. It's all going to be down to our Lickitung in the back. What does Butters have in the back outside of this Cresselia Registeel? We don't quite get the full farm down, but we have a lot of energy. Take the Grass Knot. In comes the Sableye. We throw the Power Whip here. We're like, okay, this still isn't great. Shadow Sableye at least takes a bit more damage. That's still a lot of health left on that Sableye. And he tries to go for a catch on the Registeel, doesn't get the catch, and the Registeel swap in gives me the time, gives me the ability to get up to the energy to get to the second Power Whip, KO the Shadow Sableye, and somehow I take game 3 off of Butters and make it a 2-3 tournament. It definitely shouldn't have been my game. I think Butters said, like, he was on the phone sort of giving his address to someone. Like, we had both checked out as it was definitely going to be his battle, but I just, I kept paying attention while I slumped in my chair, and it was like, all of a sudden, all the pieces just fell into place. And, you know, I think in Butter's head, like, he was also, like, panicking, like, oh, wait, I all of a sudden, where's this win going? And so, you know, that swap into Registeel as a last-minute Hail Mary, but at the end of the day, it just paid off in my favor. And so, ended up with 2-3, so pretty happy with that. But let me go back to the little imagey. Oh, wait. Oh, well, don't forget to subscribe, I guess. I can take my team off as well, but yeah, essentially, I'm showing off my battles because I clearly have not done well enough to end up in that week 2 sort of finalsy stream. And so this is essentially just, yeah, go ahead and watch that. Again, the week 1 VOD is already on the channel, so you can go and watch that right now. A lot of really cool battles, and really cool to have the world champion casters, because, like, you know, we're looking at regional winners, we're looking at a ton of world's qualified battlers. I probably should have counted, like, before the stream to, like, have a count, but it's at a glance, it's at least 5. So there's a lot of world's qualified folks in this casting pool, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how it all unfolds this weekend. But with that said, thank you for watching. You know, I'm slowly getting a little bit better. I'm starting to learn my move counts, which I haven't really been using in the past, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, we're improving a little bit. But yeah, we'll see how we go. Good luck to you all in your battles, and again, I'll see you at the World Championships in a couple of weeks. And if you aren't around for the stream, the VOD will be uploaded, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that as well. And I don't think I have anything else to say, except thank you to Dracoviz for putting this announcement graphic together, because it looks so swish. I mean, look at this thing. Really cool. But yeah, and thank you to all of the casters for jumping in as well. I'm going to try and link other videos in the description to, like, if any of the other casters make videos of their battles. I know Inadequance just put out a video the other day of his round 2 and 3. His round 1 was on stream. His round 2 was against me, so you can go and watch his perspective as well. And then his round 3 battle against LNDS Oreo. And then his round 4 and 5 battles are going to be on stream this weekend. So I know there's a few other content creators who are waiting until after the week 2 stream to put them out. So I might update it as we go. But at this point, I am rambling. So see you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe, and bye.